Hello, I'm Joseph Wu, and today I'll be exploring the context behind Kazuo Ishiguro's novel Never Let Me Go. While the book covers many conceptual topics, I will be starting off with some background information on the author and how an important childhood event partially influenced him to write this novel. Kazuo Ishiguro was born in the infamous city of Japan, Nagasaki, on November 8, 1954. At a young age of 5, his family moved to England, where he developed his passion for English literature and was immersed into the European culture. However, in an interview with Ishiguro, it was said that his own Japanese culture and history was hidden by his parents purposely, which to their intention was to hide the gruesome incident from him of the Nagasaki bombing that occurred a decade ago. It was because of this exact obscuring of his own Japanese history which turned out to be an incentive for concept in Never Let Me Go. Ishiguro relates this idea of shielding children from the dangers of the world to his personal life and demonstrates to the public that unfortunately it is only a temporary wall that will be broken down once they grow up. This concealment of the Nagasaki bombing can also be compared to the covering and ignorance of society's issues. Exactly like in the novel, the main characters are protected by the guardians and are given a pleasant environment to live in, before being exposed to the harsh realities that they need to face as clones. Moving on to the literary influence of the novel. Never Let Me Go is a dystopian sci-fi set in a world with advanced scientific technology. As it was published in 2005, the novel is written in a more conventional/modern style. In an interview with Ishiguro, he doesn't mention any direct influences to any novels or authors. However, they may have been a hint of inspiration for the romantic part of the novel from the music he admired and listened to as a child. While he was a teenager, he did have a desire of becoming a rock star, because he immersed himself into the world of 1960s music. There may have been a slight influence on some literary choices he made while writing Never Let Me Go. A clear example is Kathy's beloved tape, peculiarly also named Never Let Me Go, sung by Judy Bridgewaters, which does in fact appear twice throughout the whole story. Its reoccurrence in the story does show, although it may not be in the form of literature, how influential music was to Ishiguro when deciding upon the themes of the book. As for the novel's cultural concept, firstly, religion-wise, Never Let Me Go isn't affected by Ishiguro's Japanese culture. We don't see a lot of relation between his Japanese culture and the topics of the book, presumably as he mainly grew up in a Western community. However, the novel does explore cultural issues we see around the world. Although it may be a dystopian science fiction where cloning is available to the humankind, many cultural aspects and morals are still quite prominent in the plot. Before we explore further what cultural issues this novel deals with, I want to talk a little about the historical context of the novel. As for Ishiguro's historical inspiration, the book doesn't necessarily correlate to any major historical events. Excluding the concealment of the Nagasaki bombing from his childhood, which the event itself wasn't a direct persuasive force writing the novel, however, there was one of the main ideas of human cloning, which all main characters present revolve around. The process of artificially recreating an organism with their genetic information is still being explored ever since it started in the 19th century. Cloning, which has been discussed increasingly in the scientific field for many decades, was growing in popularity. In 2003, which was during the writing process of Never Let Me Go, Dolly the sheep was successfully cloned, which was thought to be the most recognized achievement in the cloning industry. This may have been an influence to Ishiguro's choice on having the characters play the role of human clones, as more questions arise on cloning. He decides to further challenge society's thoughts on this particular subject, although human cloning has not been achieved yet. This novel proposes and questions the morality and integrity behind this scientific process. Returning back to the cultural context, this novel deals mainly with the discrimination between different social classes, races, etc. We first need to explore how the cultural issues and beliefs are represented in the novel. Quote, "Your lives are set out for you. You'll become adults, and before you're old, before you're even middle age, you'll start to donate your vital organs." Here, Miss Lucy reveals to the students of Hallisham that their sole purpose, in the end, was to donate organs to real human beings and to just die. It is obvious towards the end of the story that there is a huge social injustice between clones and real human beings. They live in totally different classes and are valued completely differently. This is quite representative to the racial and gender discriminations we see in our present day. However, because this novel deals with the idea of clones, do our moral judgments of this discrimination work the same? Cloning is a very controversial subject that humanity has yet to debate for. While it may be marking a huge leap in scientific advancement, it still poses many concerns and moral questions for these human replications. In the novel, Ishiguro tackles the idea of how clones would be seen and used in the human world. It can be predicted, like in the novel, that even if they were to have the same qualities humans have, these replications still wouldn't be considered and treated as real humans. For example, we can see that the main characters in the book behave exactly like a human would. They would be assumed to be human by the audience only until the author reveals their true clone identity. For example, the development and emotions of the characters. On page 23, Kathy notices how Tommy suddenly learned to control his temper. Tommy shrugged. "I've grown up a bit, I suppose, and maybe everyone else has too. Can't keep on with the same stuff all the time. Gets boring." Two main characteristics that humans possess that differentiates us from other beings are the ability to adapt quickly and the struggle of doing the same thing over and over again. These few details in the story demonstrate that if clones were to be created, they would have the same emotions and thinking processes of humans, unlike AI, which still lack many human qualities. However, this is where things get a little contentious. Although clones may be the same as humans, they will be nearly forever labeled as clones. It can be agreed upon that if an identical copy of you were to be created, you wouldn't say that this clone is you. Thus, if in the future, if cloning does happen, a vivid divergence between clones and humans would be created almost instantaneously. Like in the story, the main characters, who are clones, were purely created to donate organs, completely ignored as human beings, and served only one purpose of donating their organs. This is quite interesting, as this can be seen as a discrimination between social, gender, and race that we see today. However, with the complete new aspect of differentiating us from clones. Clones and human beings would all act the same, have the same emotions, and follow human nature. But the only difference is how we are created. While the differences between humans and clones closes up even further as they would be identical in nearly every way. Does the process of how an individual is created change everything? They may have feelings and have thought processes, but can they be considered human? The idea behind cloning further perplexes and questions the definition and classification of a human being. What exactly makes you human, and what exactly makes you you? Thank you.